To welcome you to our CERC research presentations. It's always nice when you have the chance to look back at all the activity that's going on within the research centre to work out who's going to be our presenters this time and who can give people a bit of an update of what's going on in the Christian education research space. So what we're going to do is we've got two presenters today, and Jason Morton's going to start off talking about his project. I'm going to jump in after Jason's finished and just give you a little update on where CERC's at, and then we've got Vladka Henley, who's going to be our second presenter. So because both these guys have the ability to talk for a long time, I won't say any more, but to introduce Jason. Thank you, man, for coming.
Unlike you, Peter. All right, hello to those online, hello to those that are here. I guess I have to stand here, is that correct? Yeah, all right. So first of all, my presentation, I usually like having a presentation that's got lots of videos in it and lots of moving things. I didn't have time with this one, so this is the most boring presentation I put together, but I did discover you can put things that move behind the background. Some of my designs are so bad that the designs on PowerPoint, it said, we have no suggestions for you, which tells me it's some issues. But I'm here to talk to you about school garden programs and how they can be used to promote sustainable development. So first of all, this is a joint project publication at the moment, and it's at the submission stage. So grandkids at the school, and was quite involved in knowing what was going on at Toronto School with its market school program. And essentially what the kids are doing is they are growing vegetables. They're using these vegetables and food in a kitchen to prepare food for the kids, but also for community events as well. But excess food, they're also selling. So there's our shopping bags there. So parents, community put in orders and the kids filled these orders. So lots of dynamics beyond just a food or a garden program. It actually had this marketing component as well. So Bev thought this is an awesome opportunity to do some research. And so she pulled the best looking and smartest people at Avondale together, and there's a list of them. And we then dove in and started getting some data and getting some publications. So this is how it sits at the moment. And there's already been 4 peer-reviewed papers. They are some of those various areas from financial literacy, all sorts of things. There's also been one book chapter. You might be familiar with this book here. Bev was involved in this one. I said to you that this is all about a paper, and there's 3 more papers still to come. So this is a major project with lots of outcomes to come from it. Now, what is sustainable development? This is my area that we're going to be publishing in. And if you don't know anything about sustainability, it is about meeting your current needs without destroying the future, essentially. And ideally, meeting your needs and bettering the future for others. So it's all about meeting the needs of the present without actually ruining it for future generations. Now, there are 3 main components when it comes to sustainability. There's obviously development that has to occur, which is in the red, but there's 2 other main elements as well. So while you're profiting and while you're doing business, you need to care for people, and you need to do it also caring for the environment, not at the detriment of either of those 2 things. So this leads us to sustainability goals. Now, I'm wanting you to participate. You hate that. Does anyone know when these SDGs, you have to be careful, when the SDGs were established? 2015. And these are aspirational goals leading to an end point. When's the end point? 2030. So sustainable goals, well done to you. It's to look at ending poverty, protecting the planet, and ensuring that by 2030, peace and prosperity for everyone. Now, these are aspirational and they will never fully be achieved, but there's no reason why we can't aspire for these things. How many Sustainable Development Goals are there? Okay, we danced around the number a little bit and landed in the middle. So there are 17 SDGs, and within these SDGs, there are targets. And some of them only have like 8 targets, and some of them have got in the teens of targets. These are the SDGs. Now, you may be familiar with some of them, but hopefully after the presentation today, you're going to get more and more familiar with them. So just scan your eye over those. And Kirsty, I have given each of you a copy of these SDGs. And I came into work this morning and said to Kirsty, I feel really bad because I'm printing something talking about sustainability and I'm giving you a paper copy of something. But Kirsty came back with an awesome comeback. And she said, it's only, unsustainable or wasted if people throw it out. And so it's on you. I have done the right thing. You are to now keep these, stick them up on your wall. Carrie's suggestion was I do an office walk and make sure they're all stuck up somewhere. So please keep an eye on these goals because we're coming back to those and I'll be quizzing you after. So when it comes to SDGs, who cares? Well, in actual fact, a lot of people do. Does anyone know what links these 4 things together? If you put into the internet, so we've got here Woolworths, we've got Telstra, BHP, and we've got the Commonwealth Bank over there. If you put into the Google search, what are the biggest companies in Australia? These are the main ones that come up. So who cares? The big companies in Australia, even small ones, care about the SDGs and they report on their processes in how they're supporting the SDGs. So people care. What's linking all this group together? Okay, these are all universities. Now, I just went for a name and they had a report. And so most universities, excluding Avondale, develop a sustainability development goals and how they are going towards these goals and how they're supporting these goals. As I said, we don't, but most other universities do. So education has a vital part in what we do, and we're well suited to provide lots of opportunities for students to positively contribute to sustainability, either through what we're teaching them, the mind, how we can change their attitudes to these things, and also their behaviours in what we get them to do. In fact, one of the targets, I said to you that each of these 17 Sustainable Development Goals have targets, and the education one of them is 4.7, and it says by 2030, ensure that all learners acquire knowledge and skills needed to promote sustainable development. And my stance is I also believe everyone should understand these SDGs and move towards supporting them in their behaviours, their cognition, and also their attitudes. So, can a school food garden program support these UN goals? Bit of a lit review, and yes, of course, people are finding this. So this one's in South Africa, 15 of the SDGs supported. So they can link their behaviours to outcomes in the students, 15 of the SDGs. We've got, you may have heard of this one. This one is in Australia, the Stephanie Alexander Kitchen Garden Program. And then we've got others. This one's in Canada. This one here's in the US. And all of them have linked their programs to a certain number of those SDGs. What do you think? You've got your pictures there. What do you think are the 4 main ones that these groups have said, yeah, we're contributing to those? So there's 17 on the page, but just what do you think the 4 main ones are? Okay. Quality education, absolutely. Hunger. Health. Yeah. And you're pretty close with most of those. And look, a lot of them will report these, a lot of them report all of these, but these are the 4 that every one of those people before said that they dove into. So we know that school food garden programs support the SDGs, but unfortunately there's not much peer-reviewed literature on it. A lot of it's just from the website that people are saying. So this is where we're diving in with this project. So what we're looking at is we're looking at a multifaceted school garden program. So it's got lots of elements, and we're going to see how it contributes to the 17. Does it contribute to them? And then provide recommendations for how they can improve and contribute even more. So this is what the program looks like. There is a food garden, and in the food garden, you can read that in your own time, but these are activities that the kids are doing. They're dealing with soil, they're dealing with the plants, and they're doing it sustainably. So we're not using pesticides and herbicides, trying to do things naturally. Linked with the food garden is the kids' kitchen. So the harvested crops go into food prep in various environments, learning about hygiene and safety. Excess crops are used to sell. And so the kids are they're being entrepreneurs, figuring out how to better their sales, how to communicate with their audience they're selling to. And then around this big program, there's also lots of other activities that were supporting it. So things like there was grants that were received from the Lake Macquarie City Council. They had volunteers delving into here. And one of the big parts is this garden open day. And this is where the gates were opened and the kids did presentations to parents, community, about the learnings that they had from the garden program, and also showed them food and things that they could prepare. With all of this, there's also kids working together in mixed age and mixed gender groups. And this, hopefully, to promote things like tolerance and equality. So that is the program. Now, what did we do? Well, lots of data. We had field notes. So this is just watching people in the gardens. We had class journals. So the kids had journals of what they got up to each day and reflections. We had observations and transcripts from that open garden day when the kids presented. And we also did focus groups. We had lots of kids, teachers, volunteers, and also parents involved in the outcomes of this program. So qualitative data was then used to look at, is there learning from cognitive? Is there emotional responses the kids are providing? Or are there behavioural things the kids are doing to support any of these? So, some of the results. This is where I'm going to get you to throw out some words. So, these are some of the things that they were doing in the garden. You've got all the list there. What's some of those goals that you think they would have been contributing to, either in their actions, their behaviours, or what they're learning? And I've bolded some of the words that might help you out. Okay, 15, which is? Okay, good. Okay, and what are those? 13, protect the planet. Yep. Now, protect the planet, the one I printed comes out different to here. It actually is called climate action. So it's a bit weird how it's printed weird. Another? 12. Which is? Responsible consumption. Anything else? 3, good health. Okay, good health. Now, so these ones here, I'll just jump through them. These are some of those that you mentioned, which are mapped to some of the things they were doing in the food garden. On top of this, remember, all of this was going on as well. They're working in mixed groups, inclusive, mixed age gender groups. They're working with volunteers. They're hopefully getting positive attitudes about inclusion and listening to others. And because of this, there are lots of other SDGs which they're getting supported. The other kids' kitchen activities, once again, in the kids' kitchen, they are doing all of this stuff. So a lot of these are getting ticked off, but they're also doing this sort of thing. So what's 2 that we can say they're also contributing to? Which is? Okay, so hunger as well. You mentioned good health, and then can't see underneath that one there, but this is water things. And there's our sanitation. And a few others. Next one, the market shop. Now, the market shop, once again, they're doing all this sort of stuff here, but they're also doing this here. So they are little businesses running. So what's one that you can think of on there that they're contributing to? Sorry?
No problem.
Yep. Any others?
8.
Which is?
Jobs and economics.
Okay. I didn't even have 8. There we go. 8's already there. So these are some of the SDGs that the market shop itself is contributing to. So you have now looked at some of those. You've seen some of those. Is there any in here that you're like, oh, that school doesn't seem to be delving into that SDG. And I can tell you there's one that we haven't, this one here. So there's no evidence that they're really delving into this part here. So it looks like we've captured about 16 of them somewhere in their program. So if you were giving recommendations to this school, what could you say they could be doing in this space?
I think they've done something there.
Yep.
Because they've done everything by hand, they haven't written out anything.
Okay, done. Good. I'll just rewrite the paper. No. What else could they do? Okay, so here are some of the recommendations. So the first one is they can fill some of these gaps by delving into this area, looking at where they're getting energy from and is there a more cleaner energy provider, rooftop solar, even the efficiencies, turning off taps, turning off lights, all of that's going to increase efficiency. Just some other points, community giving. So they can select particular projects, which the targets of the SDGs are trying to hit. They can look at more sustainable and ethical purchasing of where they get their things from. Holistic health promotion, at the moment, it's very much on healthy eating, but of course there's other things about holistic health, which could also be part of the program. Involving students more in their decision-making rather than being very teacher-led. Expanding networks for partnerships so that there's more integration of partnerships for the goals. And then when it comes to packaging, there's not much done in this space, but try to purchase things in the kitchen, less packaging, and if you do get packaging, do the right thing with it. So that's an area that was a bit weak as well. So there's some of the recommended actions. So in conclusion, a well-designed, multifaceted school food garden program can offer support various ways, and I've got the 6 main ways, including learning about tolerance, sharing profits. I actually didn't mention, they give tithe to community giving and working with volunteers. And just a last thanks to Andrea Thompson and Lyle Drury, who were instrumental in running this program back at the school. Thank you.
Well done. Well, thank you, Jason. That was really interesting. What a project. And I think that I've obviously heard a presentation before on that project, but to see how the number of publications you're getting out of that and the number of sort of relevant areas of interest, it's really so solid. So thanks, man, for sharing that. What I'm going to do now is just take a few brief moments to give you just a little update of a couple of things to do with CERC. And the first of these is, I just want to remind people that the Teach Journal is up and running. We ended up with, we missed a year really. COVID came along and really slowed us down, and then we've sort of struggled to be up on the very current issue. But I think this year we're going to actually achieve that and get to where we need to be. So Matty in the marketing area has been really helpful, and he's helped us set up a new Teach Journal website. So if you just go into Google and type Teach Journal, you'll actually find there's 2 ways you'll find it. One is through the repository, and that just takes you and it gives you a list of the articles. But if you go to the second one down that comes up on Google, it actually takes you into this website, and that's what it looks like. And so this is a recreation of what the Teach Journal used to look like. And so, you know, certainly has a, it works well with all the past issues, etc. Peter Kilgore has stepped into the role after Graham Perry retired. We should acknowledge the work that Graham's done over many years, producing many editions of Teach. But Peter has come into that role, and we've produced 1 issue already this year. We have 2 more issues that are going to come out. One of those is going to be a collection of research projects done through the master's program, I think, and Michelle's working on that with Peter, and it's that's an exciting thing to do. And I just spoke to Peter last week, and the last issue, I think he has 6 peer-reviewed papers ready to go into it, so it's basically full. So by the end of the year, we may just hold one of those issues so they don't all come out in schools at once. And so there'll be 1 more coming out this year and 1 more, and the other one will come out towards the beginning of next year, and then 2 more issues next year. So if you go to our journal website and click on View Past Volumes, this is sort of what it looks like. There's just a whole collection of the past volumes there. And if you click on any of those books, it just downloads the entire issue as a PDF to your computer. And so we've got people now who can just access the issues whole as bolus. And so it's good to have it back online, because when it sort of disappeared for that little bit as they changed the way the repository worked, Press used to host the Teach Journal, and so we lost that facility. So to have it sort of back up and running is something that's really good. It's certainly interesting to me, the number of people who contacted me asking me where it was. And so that does give me an indication that, we have quite a readership out there. I did go to a group called the Scholarly Christian Education Group that meets in Sydney twice a year. It's hosted at Morling College. It's chaired by John Collier, who's the principal of Shaw. And there's a whole representation there. There's probably about 100 people in the room. And John, certainly amongst those people who sort of come out of the Christian university sector and also private schools in Sydney, John certainly gave the Teach Journal a major rap when saying it's the last peer-reviewed journal of Christian education in Australia. And so it was nice to get that acknowledgement, and he certainly heaped praise on Avondale University. And so I said to him later when at morning tea, gee, John, you could be our campaign man. And we had quite a chuckle over it, but he was very genuine. Good thing. Second point I just want to mention of the three I just want to talk about is a project being the service learning think tank in the Queensland Conference Office. And so we had a group there with probably about 20 people in the room. And what we're doing is working towards doing a service learning project at Darling Downs Adventist College. Heidi Maz is the principal there, and she has a real desire to want to create or use service learning extensively in her school. In our little think tank, here are the people that were there. These are the presenters. And so what we did is that each of the presenters presented sort of like a micro paper, and that presentation sort of went for 20 or 30 minutes, and then we workshop the implications of that paper. And the idea was by the end of the day, we wanted to have a path forward for the Darling Downs Adventist College for next year. And Adventist Schools Australia, I know Jean's on Zoom there, have given us a research grant to go in and research how that school's going to go with their service learning project next year. And so it's exciting times. By the end of it all, we actually came out with a good plan in that Darling Downs Adventist Academy left that think tank, and they conducted an assessment of their current approach, because they've been so busy, you know what it's like in schools, that they recognise that even what they're doing right now, there's a few holes in it, and they want the chance to fix up those holes. So they've gone back to do that over the next about 6 weeks. What we're going to do is do a pre-pilot of the school based on their 2025 outcomes, and then try and give school information about what needs to be done for this whole of school service culture to be put in place. So the school's changing its emphasis from having a service learning project that the kids do to wanting to have a service culture that permeates the entire school. And that's actually quite different. And service projects are going to be part of what they do, but now there's a much bigger vision for what service can do. We're going to go through a curriculum development stage in which curriculum and professional development materials are developed, and we hope to do that through an SPD innovation grant. And then we're going to do a follow-up study once the final program has been developed and implemented to see how it's going in the school. They were very keen as well to create a service learning sort of community of teachers and academics, with the request that CERC hosts a service learning conference in 2027. And so, that's an exciting project, and there's a lot of energy and drive. The Queensland Conference is right behind it. I'm pretty sure if you ask Jean Carter, she'd say that Adventist Schools Australia are also very supportive of the whole service learning thing. So yeah, that's an exciting thing. Lastly, I just want to give you a brief update on the Adventist Schools Australia Quality Improvement Project. Kevin and I flew up to Queensland yet again. A lot of things happening in Queensland. And we met at Darling Downs Adventist College. That's the way it actually worked, because they have education advisory meetings, ASA do, and in the second one of the year, they sort of host it at various schools around Australia and New Zealand. No, Australia, sorry. And so they were at Darling Downs. What was interesting is that I started off by sort of just giving a little worship, I suppose, talking about the good ground. And I really enjoyed the fact that all the ed directors were very much committed to the idea that Adventist schools become the good ground. And so that was good to see such synergy in the room. They have developed the latest version of their Quality Adventist Schools model. And of that model, it's got various parts there. Kevin, of course, has obviously done a lot of work already on the faith engagement SPD study. And so he was in the position to share a number of ways that these things might be measured. In discussing that, I also had the opportunity to share a couple of other things that we might also like to include. I suppose we got to the point where the education directors, all very supportive of what we were doing, but really said they needed to go back to their conferences. Now they sort of understood the process a bit more and do a wider consultation with their principals and schools. So they're doing that, and we have booked in our diaries on October 7, we have a Zoom meeting with all those education directors as we try to finalise the form of the instrument we're going to use as we move into a pilot study in 2026 with the full sort of quality improvement study starting off with every school in 2027. So once again, this is a really exciting study, and you know, it's nice to be involved with Adventist Schools Australia and for Avondale University and CERC to be playing such an important role in their quality improvement processes. So watch this space. I'm sure there's going to be a lot more coming out about that. So that's the little update from me. 3 things: Teach Journal, service learning, and improvement in ASA schools. I'm now going to ask Vladka if she'll come forward. Vladka has done an amazing study into school choice, and she's going to bring us up to date on one aspect of that. Oh, okay. Yep.
Thanks, Peter. Thanks, Jason. Jason began his talk with saying how his presentation is more boring than usual, but I don't have spinning letters. I don't have Venn diagrams. I don't have an interactive question and answer time. I don't have colourful handouts or photographs. So we'll see how we go. Let me just get this sorted. Maybe.
Let's just make sure that this.
Yep, perfect. Thank you. See, I just needed
Answer to every problem.
absolutely. Thank you. I'm going to share a little bit of my PhD research. I've reported and presented the main part of my research, but this is one little section that I haven't presented anywhere, and Peter asked me to do that today. I did my research on faith-based school choice, and I finished a few years ago, but my topic was an exploration into the factors that influence parents when choosing a non-government school for their children, and it was an Australian faith-based school study, ASA, of course. And I had a number of questions, and these are just a few of them. You know, are there differences in the reasons for school choice between parents of different faith affiliations? What were the reasons for SDA parents to choose a faith-based school? What were the reasons for other faith parents or non-faith parents? Because as we know, the majority of parents in many of our schools don't come from Adventist backgrounds. So why are they choosing Adventist schools? Anecdotally, we've got lots of stories and reasons for that, but data was slow in coming. Are there also differences in reasons for school choice between parents that choose a faith-based school in a rural region versus the ones that choose them in urban regions? Were there differences? That's really exciting, and I can tell you another day if you haven't heard that. But today I'm looking at and sharing what sources of information were important in helping parents make those decisions about those schools. What were they using? Because that does impact what the schools can do. So the aim was essentially to understand why parents are choosing SDA schools when there are so many other non-government schools to choose from, so many other Christian schools to choose from, and of course, government schools that are free. Okay. And my aim was also to provide research-based data rather than, as I mentioned, the anecdotal data. Help direct relevant and targeted marketing strategies. That's an important aspect, a financial commitment that our schools have, and support SDA schools and possibly other faith-based schools to enhance their enrolments or maintain the current enrolments from this research. As a literature education landscape, most places around the world don't do that. So we are very unique in that sense. There's quite a few, there's quite a bit of research around school choice and things like that. But the only SDA study was by our very own Peters, Beamish and Morey quite a few years ago. And that was targeting one particular school. So I felt, and other people felt, that this was a good gap in the research for me to pursue. I did mixed methodology, schools in the North New South Wales region, and the North New South Wales region was chosen because I taught in that area. It was easy proximity, so that was my context. Quantitative data was done in the form of a survey. I just used SurveyMonkey at the time. I contacted the principals of the 4 schools that I chose, and they were all very agreeable to let me have access to the school to do my research. I provided everything for the PA, so there was no extra work for anybody. The survey was embedded within the email, so it was all easy to send out. And there was actually 1,879 families enrolled in these schools at that time. And 778 parents responded, and that gave me a really excellent response rate of 41%. So if you know survey response rates, they're not very high. So I was quite pleased with that. Some raw figures of the different schools, and of course the urban schools had larger student populations, so more parents responded, of course, than the rural schools. The interesting one here is the number of people that responded according to their faith affiliation. Nearly 19% were SDAs. That's a good number. That's about the number of percentage of Adventists in most schools anyway. 44.6% were other faith, which included other Christian as well as other world faiths. And I love the last one, 36.5% said that they had no faith affiliation. I think that's really significant. What a mission field. No faith at all. And they sent their children to a Christian SDA school. And I analysed using that SPSS program. My qualitative data phase was semi-structured interviews. I did conduct those in between lockdowns. It was a little bit stretched out. I couldn't do anything. I was thinking about Zooming and all of that, but a little window of about 3 or 4 weeks opened up where I could travel and access the schools. So I quickly went out there and did all of that. I had a lot of people respond within the survey that they would like to take part in the interviews. It was a lot, more than I expected. One of the schools had over 140 people say that they would like to take part. So of course, in the end, I had to do some purposeful sampling to make sure that a variety of interviewees was included: male, female, SDA, other Christian, other world faith, non-faith, primary, secondary, just to get a nice, well, as much of a spread as possible. 21 interviews done completely. I like round numbers. I was going for 20, but circumstances, I ended up with 21. I recorded the interviews on my phone and then used Word to transcribe it, and then had to listen because it doesn't always transcribe perfectly and edit as I was going along. NVivo was used, coding, all of that good stuff, finding themes, etc. So a little bit on the quantitative results. This here, you can see all the options that I gave people. I've sort of truncated some of the, so it wasn't too long. This is the mean of responses of everybody without identifying or anything. Anything above a 2.5 meant that the majority of respondents said that this particular source of information was very important or extremely important. I had a 4-point Likert scale: not important, somewhat important, very, and extremely. So these four, the academic reputation of the school, recommendation from other people, interaction with school staff, and the reputation of the school in the community, was where most of the parents said it was either very important or extremely important in their decision making. That's where they got their information. Okay, so that one there. This one, I compared urban results to the rural parent responses, and more or less it followed that same pattern, particularly for the urban parents. The same four they said were really important in helping them make that decision. The rural parents, this one was an interesting one that came out in that survey, that it was their child's own choice, more so than the academic reputation of that rural school. I thought that was an interesting little difference there. And then I compared SDA respondents, other faith respondents. I put them all for whatever reason, all together, and then the non-faith respondents. There was a few anomalies that came out, of course, with the SDA respondents. You can see that they perhaps always wanted to send their children to an Adventist school. That's not a surprise though, is it? The other one that came up with their own personal experience, perhaps they had some connection with the group, perhaps they had gone to that school themselves, whatever that meant for them. And then we've got the same sort of graph results there. And the SDA and the other faith respondents followed more or less with these four sources of information. Okay, so that was really interesting. What helped them make their choice? Academic reputation of the school, recommendation from others, interaction with school staff, and the reputation of the school in the community. So the quantitative results suggest that overall, these four are the most important. Urban schools follow the same process, rural, except for the child's own choice. But for Adventist parents, it was slightly different. Okay, there were some changes there. Let's have a look at the qualitative results. When I did the thematic analysis of the interviews, 4 main themes came up with some sub-themes under them. Child agency was there, where it was the child's own choice. Influence of others. When people talked about influence of others, they talked about word of mouth, they talked about the reputation of the school in the community, and friends or family had gone there or are there. When they talked about interaction with the school, they mentioned things like interview with the principals. That was important, or interaction with other staff members, or a school tour. That was also influential. And then some of them did research online. They may have looked at the school website, they may have looked at the government My School website, or they might have looked at other online media. So they're the things that they mentioned that I categorised in that order. And I just want to share with you some of their actual words for this part, the qualitative part. Under the category of influence of others, this is what was said, and some of them are really pointed. Some of them, sometimes the interviewees were very passionate about what they were saying about the school. Sometimes there was emotion and tears even in what they were saying. So I really loved being in that space where they were sharing what they were sharing with me, very personal things. So word of mouth. This person said, I spoke to quite a lot of people who said good things about that school. I've only heard one person have a negative experience. Everyone else raved about it and said how impressed they were. There were a lot of testimonies from people, like maybe 8 different families in different contexts. Some I knew quite well, and others I just would meet and they go, oh, I couldn't be happier with that school, it's fantastic. Sometimes they spoke about family or friends. Now, my friends' kids are here and they already had the experience. So I did ask them, and they did say that this is a good school. Reputation of the school in the community, and I really love this one. I would pretty much ask anyone with a pulse their opinion, because I believe that sometimes the opinion of people that live in the area, they know more than what's written on an annual report or on a website. So I would go to the supermarket and ask the kid at the checkout, and I asked the real estate agent and the person serving me at a cafe, hey, I'm looking to bring my kids up to the coast. What do you think? And the school name came up repeatedly. Really impressive. Reputation of the school in the community. And 13 of those the 15 parents said that they were influenced by other people. The second theme that came out was actual interaction with the school, with the principal. He was upfront and honest about the pros and cons of a smaller school and that sort of thing. So I thought that was great. I think it was all quite transparent from the start. So it wasn't the smoke and mirrors. It was basically under-promising and over-delivering right from the get-go. With interactions with the staff. One thing that made us feel very comfortable coming away from it was the fact that multiple teachers and staff made a massive effort to actually say, while we were walking around the facility, that they wanted us. And the school tour. We researched, I think, about 3 or 4 different private schools, and we did go on 2 other private school visits. When we did our visit, than the other 2 schools. And 10 out of the 15 mentioned interaction with the school as influencing their I've used my school in the past and found that my school wasn't sufficient for and realised with our values. What we valued in education was much broader than just the academic. I looked at my school, but it wasn't an influencing factor. And online media. So we looked at news articles to see what they were doing. All were positive, there were no negatives. So reading about all that and sort of nestled in with the informational website and then the interview and then seeing it in person, all those elements together. And 8 out of the 15 parents mentioned researching something online. And the last one, only 3 parents talked about child agency. And they said, well, my kids had to want to go there. Okay, so that was a big thing. You know, we would go and see the school and that was the place they wanted to be. She added that when her daughter saw the school facilities, she just walked out and said, where do I sign? That's the child. One mother stated that her daughter was part of the decision-making. And when one parent asked her son if he'd like to go to the school, he said, yes, yes, I want to come, I just do. So only 3 out of the 15 parents overtly mentioned that child agency was the child's choice to go there. The qualitative results suggest that the influence of others and interaction with the school were the most important sources of information. Research online was used warily by parents and child agency was the least influential of all those points. But overall, this research showed that it's not just one thing parents are looking for when they choose a faith-based school or an Adventist school. It's a synergy of many different elements all working together, but we have now the data to support what we need to be focusing on. So a school shouldn't just focus on marketing one element of the school, but a number of different things. And there's been some research outputs here as well. I don't have photographs of the articles. It's been in the Teach Journal of Christian Education, and one of the one of those Revealing Jesus books. I have a chapter in that as well. And thank you. Thank you, Peter.
Thanks a lot, Vladka. I'm a director of the school company in North New South Wales, one of the directors. And it was interesting that Tony Kent is the principal from the Central Coast School. So we've got a couple of big schools around here, right? So Avondale's a big school, Macquarie's a big school, Central Coast School. So Central Coast School now, 1,100 kids. They have a waiting list for every year from K to 12, a waiting list. And one of the waiting lists for one of the years is over 100 waiting to get in. And what was interesting when we were looking at the data that he was reporting to us, for kindy, he had the waiting list by year. And when it got out to 6 years, there was this little bar on the graph. And I said to Tony, what is that? And he said, oh, yeah, they're the kids who are on the waiting list who haven't been born yet. And I said, what do you mean haven't been born yet? They said, when the mother found out she was pregnant, the next day she came and enrolled her kid in kindy. Now, I'm old enough to remember my first teaching job was at the Newcastle Adventist School, which is now Macquarie College, and that school had 130 kids in it, and we were pushed financially on everything. So look, I just want to say, let's just take a moment to appreciate how great it is for these schools to be the sort of successful organisations they are now. And it's really interesting to look at what parents are looking for in schools. I think Vladka's study has been really insightful and interesting just to see what is it that parents are actually after. So thank you. Thank you to our presenters. Thank you, Jason. Thank you, Vladka. Thanks you guys for coming.